Low prices, members-only deals, and a whole heap of E. coli. Yes, it seems that customers at BJ's sometimes get a whole lot more than they bargained for. Trouble hit BJ's frozen food section in late December 2023 when Philo Factory Inc. issued a recall on mini quiches it sells under the BJ's brand name of Wellsley Farms. Philo Factory, a manufacturer based in Northvale, New Jersey, cooperated with the FDA to voluntarily recall Wellsley Farms' assorted mini quiches due to a possible foreign material being present in the product. The foreign contaminant in question was aluminum. BJ's issued a public recall notice for the quiches on January 19, 2024. The notice specified that the aluminum-tainted hors d'oeuvres were sold in stores between December 19 and December 28, 2023. The fact that this happened during peak holiday season was surely lost on no one.
God bless us, everyone.
The origin of the mistake was subsequently narrowed down to distribution centers in Connecticut and Florida. Although the FDA noted that Wellsley Farms' assorted mini quiches were distributed to retail stores in Connecticut, Florida, Maine, Massachusetts, New York, and South Carolina, BJ's recall notice states that only stores in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, and Orlando, Florida were affected. When the recall broke in January, the public was warned not to consume the product as the recall status was ongoing. The FDA terminated the recall on April 3, 2024. Wellsley Farms' assorted mini quiches are currently sold in BJ's stores. In 1997, BJ's Wholesale Club became an independently owned company, but this milestone was temporarily dampened by a recall on the store's sugar-free assorted cookies. The late 1990s and early 2000s saw a surge in the popularity of sugar-free desserts, but a recall was initiated when the label on BJ's trendy sugar-free cookies failed to disclose that the product potentially contained peanuts, oat, and soy-based ingredients. BJ's sugar-free assorted cookies were made by Century Cookies, a division of Boca Foods based in Harrison, New Jersey. The cookies were sold in 2-pound boxes and distributed to BJ's locations throughout the East Coast region. The recall affected all boxes of BJ's sugar-free assorted cookies sold between May 1, 1997 and July 10, 1997, about 9,500 boxes in total. The FDA gave BJ's sugar-free cookie recall a Class 1 designation, the most serious recall level. This is reserved for situations in which there is a reasonable likelihood that use or exposure of the product could cause serious health problems or death. People with severe peanut allergies can indeed die from eating foods that contain just traces of peanuts. Notably, food recalls related to undeclared allergens were on the rise in the late 90s. In 1999, the FDA recorded that 36% of its annual food recalls were due to undeclared allergens, with candy and bakery items accounting for more than half of those cases. In the summer of 1999, a boy in Monroe County, New York became ill from eating hamburger meat purchased from BJ's Wholesale Club. The meat was found to be contaminated with E. coli 0157, one of the deadliest forms of food poisoning, especially when contracted by children, the elderly, or anyone who's immunocompromised. BJ's procured the meat from New Hampshire meat distributor Jack Pack Foods. In response, Jack Pack Foods voluntarily recalled 250,000 pounds of frozen patties and ground beef. Then, in May 2002, a disturbing rise in E. coli cases began cropping up in New York State. The health department from one of the affected counties notified the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets. The department's investigation pointed toward 90% lean ground beef purchased from BJ's Wholesale Club as the source of these illnesses. Test samples provided by the families of 2 young girls who fell ill confirmed the presence of E. coli 0157H7. BJ's launched a discreet recall on July 16th of that year, mailing letters to customers who had bought the tainted beef at a New York location between May 8th and May 13th. By the late 2000s, the chain's ground beef woes were starting to seem like a recurring problem.
We have a news alert for you on a major ground beef recall. An E. coli scare is prompting the recall of ground beef sold at BJ stores in 8 states.
In October 2009, Fairbanks Farms out of Asheville, New York, recalled approximately 545,699 pounds of fresh ground beef products due to the likelihood of E. coli contamination. BJ's was one of several grocery retailers that sold the tainted meat. Fairbanks Farms' voluntary recall didn't come in time, however. 2 deaths linked to E. coli 0157H7 were reported, one in New York and one in New Hampshire. Less than a year later, in September 2010, BJ's was forced to reckon with yet another potential E. coli outbreak, this time for its 90% lean frozen ground beef. The beef came from Cargill Meat Solutions, a company with a history of large-scale recalls. BJ shoppers who had grown accustomed to buying Glucerna and Premier Protein shakes by the case got a rude awakening in July 2022 when BJ's posted a product recall that affected these and other brands. The protein shakes were sold under different banners, but both were manufactured by Lyons Magnus LLC. The company voluntarily issued the recall due to a possible contamination by Chronobacter. Unfortunately, protein shakes weren't the only BJ's items that may have carried this pathogen. Varied flavors of Lyons Ready Care, Lyons Barista Style, Perk, Aloha, Intelligentsia, Cape Farms, Oatly, MRE, Imperial Dairy, and various plant-based nutritional drinks were also named in the recall, which affected all BJ's Wholesale Club locations, and things only escalated from there. In August 2022, the FDA expanded the Lyons Magnus recall due to suspicion that bacteria known to cause botulism was present in the company's supply. After the recall, the FDA inspected a Lyons Magnus processing facility in Wisconsin and uncovered major food safety violations, including failure to seal its products according to federal regulations. Approximately 35 million Lyons Magnus produced units were recalled, with about 19 million having already been purchased by unknowing customers. Quaker Oats, a once seemingly indestructible force in the packaged food business, has found itself in hot water recently, and not the kind you make oatmeal with. In December 2023, BJ's notified customers that the Quaker Oats company had recalled select granola bars and cereals due to possible salmonella contamination. BJ's notice indicated that Chewy Chocolate Chip and Peanut Butter Chocolate Chip granola bars, Chocolate Chip Chewy Dips granola bars, and Quaker Natural granola were affected by the recall.
These are no ordinary oats. They're Quaker Oats.
The notice specified that the potential contamination may have affected the recalled products sold in all BJ's locations between January 1st and December 15, 2023, almost a full year's worth. All remaining units in BJ's possession were promptly destroyed, and customers were instructed to contact Quaker Consumer Relations for reimbursement. In January 2024, Quaker expanded its recall to include more than 60 products, all due to the threat of salmonella. The affected products were sold at various grocery stores in all 50 states and 3 territories, Guam, Puerto Rico, and Saipan in the Northern Mariana Islands. In April 2024, Quaker reported financial losses of 5% and annual revenue dipped to $3.1 billion. That same month, a Quaker Oats plant in Illinois closed for good. Trouble arose in 2016 when BJ's discovered that Citterio Mortadella containing pistachios was being sold at some of its stores. Yet, those pistachios were not a listed ingredient on the mortadella packaging used at BJ's Delicatessen. The company issued a voluntary recall due to the undisclosed allergen, narrowing down the potentially impacted stores to Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. What's worse, BJ's locations selling the pistachio-laced mortadella were slicing all deli meat on the same slicer, potentially constituting a hotbed for cross-contamination. This forced BJ's to not only recall the Citterio Mortadella, but all the other deli meat from affected stores as well. BJ's worked closely with the FDA to issue the recall, which impacted deli meats sold in select states from January 20th to February 3rd, 2016. The link between pistachios and mortadella was no coincidence, though. In some regions of Italy, mortadella studded with sliced pistachios is the recipe of choice. Citterio, an Italian deli company dating back to 1870, sells versions of mortadella with and without pistachios.
Welcome back. A food company in Georgia is now recalling some of its sausage links because they may be contaminated with plastic.
You expect sausage meat to undergo grinding and mixing at the processing plant, but Perdue tossed in some unwanted extras in the spring of 2017. Consumer complaints arose after bits of blue plastic were found inside Perdue Harvestland organic Italian chicken sausage, which was sold at Northeast locations of BJ's Wholesale Club. Perdue Farms stated that the blue plastic came from a pair of safety goggles that somehow found their way into the mixture before the sausages were stuffed. Perdue, a giant in meat manufacturing, recalled all sausage products that were processed on the line containing the errant safety goggles, adding up to over 1,400 24-ounce units, equivalent to roughly 2,148 pounds. No one was hurt by the factory error, but it's safe to say that BJ shoppers didn't look at Perdue sausage quite the same way again. Perdue continues to produce Italian chicken sausage, but BJ's no longer appears to keep that version in stock. Still, it seems that this wasn't the end of this peculiar problem. In recent years, Perdue has issued more than one recall on account of a disturbing but apparently recurring issue: plastic from shattered safety goggles showing up in its meat products. Yes, it seems this contaminant wasn't only found in the company's chicken sausage links. Perhaps unsurprisingly, BJ's has endured the fallout over this a couple of times. In August 2022, a customer report surfaced detailing the discovery of small pieces of clear plastic and blue dye in Perdue brand gluten-free chicken breast tenders. In an abundance of caution, Perdue quickly ceased production of these tenders. Closer analysis of the issue zeroed in on Perdue's 42-ounce bags of frozen, breaded chicken breast tenders produced on July 12, 2022, and subsequently sold at BJ's Wholesale Club locations nationwide. Since Perdue was quick to stop selling the problematic tenders, the USDA put out a public health alert rather than a full-scale recall, but BJ's didn't want to play it safe. The grocery chain acknowledged that it had sold the questionable product from July 18th to August 18th, 2022, a time frame that happened to shortly follow the Perdue factory incident. On August 19th, 2022, BJ sent out a food safety action letter to club members who purchased the item in an effort to promote transparency over the problem. There's never a good time to issue a food recall, but the difficulties faced by the world during the summer of 2020 made BJ's frozen shrimp recall feel especially problematic. Cotter Exports, a food manufacturing company based in India, voluntarily recalled its frozen, cooked shrimp after FDA testing of the product came back positive for salmonella. Cotter Exports sells pre-cooked shrimp to numerous grocery store chains, which then sells the product under a variety of brand names. The frozen shrimp brands that were affected by the recall were Aquastar Reserve, Sensi, Fresh Market, Kirkland, Unistar Tops, and BJ's house brand, Wellsley Farms. The Class 2 recall was initiated in July 2020 and terminated in December 2021. No illnesses were reported. The FDA reported that a total of 406,080 pounds of Cotter Exports shrimp were recalled as a result of the salmonella threat, which had likely been caused by cross-contamination at the manufacturing facility. This would not be the last of the FDA's issues with Cotter Exports shrimp, however. On two separate occasions in 2024, Cotter Exports shrimp was banned from entering the U.S. after illegal antibiotics were found in the product. In July 2015, Arthur Schumann Inc. of Fairfield, New Jersey, recalled its grated Parmesan because it had not disclosed the inclusion of egg lysozyme, an enzyme derived from egg whites, on the label. The mislabeling of Bella Rosa cheese prompted the FDA to issue a Class 1 recall in 13 states, as the undeclared allergen posed a significant health threat to consumers with an egg allergy or egg sensitivity. Although the recall wasn't nationwide, it was huge. 30,200 pounds of grated Parmesan were mislabeled by Arthur Schumann Inc. The presence of egg lysozyme in Bella Rosa grated Parmesan was uncovered during a routine quality assurance audit. Luckily, no illnesses were reported as a result of the mislabeling, and Bella Rosa and BJ's have since parted ways. BJ's grated Parmesan duties are now divided between its house brand, Wellsley Farms, and Kraft.